Welcome to the Academy of Esports podcast. I am your host, James O'Hagan, and this week I have Kathy Chiang. She is with UCI Esports. She's their assistant director, and I feel like she's grown up with the whole program. In fact, been there since the beginning. Kathy, thank you so much for being on the Academy of Esports podcast today.
Yeah, thank you, James. I really appreciate the invite.
Well, and it's true. I mean, you have been with UCI Esports since the beginning. I mean, you graduated from high school, I believe, in 2011, correct?
Right.
Right? Yeah. And one of the top high schools in the nation. I was doing research on you. And yeah, you were
Wow.
right there in Cerritos at, what's it called? Now I'm drawing a blank. Now
Whitney High School.
Yes. One of the
It's been ages.
but again, one of the top high schools in the United States, not just California, but everywhere. And then, of course, you're in one of the top esports programs in the United States, the collegiate level. I don't think that's coincidence.
Wow. I've never seen anyone do research back to where I went to high school, but definitely did teach me a lot about being very competitive and, successful and entrepreneurial. And that's kind of the mindset that we had as a college preparatory kind of school. So yeah, maybe there is some truth to that. I've never thought about it.
Well, yeah, let's dive into that just a little bit, because again, being the assistant director of a top tier collegiate esports program, I mean, one that ESPN has done many, looked at very closely. They've done documentary about the program, obviously, but it didn't just like all of a sudden just grow up overnight. But let's go back just a little bit with you on, was there anything that, I think, as you talked about, just like the competitive spirit of your high school, were the things that you felt that prepared you in high school for your experience of where you're at right now?
Yeah, I would say, so in high school, I was kind of in all the friend groups. Like I didn't really have like one group I stayed with. I was very social, like to mingle. And one of those groups was the gamers on our campus. And I really enjoyed kind of just playing games and learning about new games with them. And League of Legends, when it first came out in about 2008, I got looped into that. And actually through some of my online friends, since I already was involved with some PC gaming. But what I did was I actually introduced League of Legends to my high school. And a lot of people joke around about that. They're like, oh yeah, you're the reason why, my test scores went down the first year or so, because people were so interested in that game. And a lot of them were coming over from like Dota and other MOBAs and things like that. So that was a big part of my kind of high school experience, because I realized I was kind of the introducer of esports, or like something more competitive, something that people were playing regularly. So that definitely played a part in me wanting to be involved in League of Legends and clubs and things like that as I went to college. But in terms of the kind of like competitive nature, I would say I really owe it to my parents. Like they wanted me to do whatever I wanted to pursue. So I wanted to be in the choir. I wanted to be in color guard. I wanted to play violin, but I also wanted to play piano. And everyone's like, you're doing too much stuff. Like you should really focus on something and hone in on it, or maybe focus more on your schoolwork. But my parents were really adamant on, you want to try violin? Sure, let's try violin. You might give it up in a couple years, or you might actually go with it. And I ended up competing in both violin, piano, and dance competitions for I would say, yeah, like a bit over like 10 years of my entire youth was like going to competitions and placing, taking the certificate of merit, all these different things that, although I don't play music as my focus today, I would say a lot of that high school experience of being involved just as much academically as extracurricularly, I guess, helped me have the right mindset to want to found those gaming clubs when I went to college.
Well, I think you and I had a very similar experience growing up. Mine, of course, Northern California, you down southeast of Los Angeles there in Cerritos. But yeah, the not finding yourself in one spot, but trying to find yourself in a variety of different groups. Mine was athletics. I was a tuba player in the band. I loved doing the plays, the performance arts, the drama. I loved the spring play. And then I did track just because the football coaches said you need to do something in the spring. And so I was like, okay, I'll just go do that instead. But yeah, I think there's something to be said about finding that spot. But what fascinates me is that, of course, as you kind of alluded to in your amazing experience growing up, is that, you of course, being first female, and not a lot of people think about women in esports, but really introducing League of Legends to your high school. And, you know, you could argue in 2008, you know, it's so new at this time that you are really kind of like really a huge trailblazer in this space, much more than I think people realize. And if you're feeling like I'm putting you on the spot with that, just take that credit and just run with it, because because again, knowing your work that you've done since then, I think it's very well earned. So kudos to you on that. So your high school experience carries you into college, where I believe you majored in computer. Oh God! You know what? This is why I should have notes up on the screen, and I don't. I didn't split my screen at all. Majored in computer game science. Now, that, again, is not something. Usually, it's computer science. What separates computer game science from just the computer science courses at college?
Yeah, so funny kind of anecdote, I guess, is that we were actually the first year of the computer game science major when I entered UCI. So the school itself was trying to figure out what exactly separates computer science from computer game science. But what I think really drove that was that people were starting to see the games industry as a very significant portion of what a lot of the new tech was going into. And they saw the direction that the games industry was taking and how it was really blowing up. People loved playing games, and now they were looking into designing them, programming them, producing them. So really, it's supposed to be a hybrid of basically, I would say 70% of it was computer science still. We still learned about algorithms. We still learned different programming languages. But then the other 30% was very projects-based, where you could choose different roles within a game design team. So you could either be a designer, you could be a programmer, an artist, sound designer, producer, all these different roles. And they really tried their best to teach you about the different disciplines within that team. So it was kind of a multidisciplinary major. And I think even today they are continuing to expand on that. So it's not so programming heavy, but really creating some baseline of you being able to fit into different roles within the game design track, I suppose.
And was it, again, because the major, of course, I don't know if you came into UCI with the idea of, hey, we're going to start an esports program here as well, or a game club. I mean, you started the legwork, you did the legwork at Whitney in high school. Was it something you showed up on campus and you're like, hey, there's nothing here, or you saw something here and it wasn't put together and it just fell into computer science or computer game science? I mean, what was kind of the order of how UCI Esports grew and became what it started to be even today?
Right. So in high school, although I was playing a lot of games, I never put a lot of structure to it. I would grab friends and be like, hey, let's jump into a lobby together. But I didn't form a gaming club on campus. We had a couple. I think there was like a Super Smash Brothers club, and there was like another club for some other game. But I actually didn't participate in those. I would just kind of attend the events and I guess I was like, soaking in all the knowledge, I guess, of what that could look like. It wasn't until I got to college, I met a bunch of people in the orientation program. So a bunch of freshmen, first day pretty much on the UCI campus. And suddenly the conversation just shifted to playing League of Legends. And everyone was like, you play? Oh, I play too. And just there were a bunch of us. And I think that was the first kind of sense of camaraderie on a new campus where all of us were, coming from all over the states. We had all different majors, but all of us played the same game. So we took that, and at first it was just a very casual Facebook group. I wasn't actually a leader in that. I was just kind of participating. And one of the guys decided, hey, why not we try to put more structure into this and create a club out of this specifically for League of Legends. At the time, I think there was a StarCraft club as well as a fighting games club, and they were well established, much older games and communities. So we were trying to start something that was a bit newer and fresher, especially with esports blowing up around that time. I think 2012, 2013, we were really inspired by how big it was getting in North America. So my leadership position really wasn't until we already founded the club. I was kind of just hanging out in there. And I noticed the graphic design was really lacking. And that's how I got involved. I really wanted to freshen it up. I wanted to help create a brand, put my graphics chops to work that I discovered through like online communities as a kid. And slowly I just took on more and more responsibilities until I was running the tournaments, I was running events, I was coordinating teams, and just slowly wormed my way up back to like the president, excuse me, like president's status. And moving on to the UCI Esports portion, that was all of the work I did as a college student, an undergraduate student, really attracted the attention of the administration after we hosted 1,000+ event for UCI as well as like the local SoCal community.
Was
And
that expected to be
yeah,
1,000? Did you
it
did you have
was.
any idea that it was going to be? I mean, that's not something that usually
Yeah.
people step into, and then all of a sudden it's like, yes, we're going to have 1,000 people here. It's like, okay, sure, you're going to have 1,000 people. Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things where events started as like 10 to 50 to 100 to 500. So by the time we did this really, really large event, we'd already done a World's Finals party in which we got 800 attendees. So the next year we were like kind of expecting the same number. So we brought it off campus. We actually took over a fairground, the hangar, airplane hangar there. And we had 1,800 people there for a viewing party. So the next year we were like, you know what, we could probably, get those numbers. And we partnered up with a bunch more organizations in SoCal. And we put together what was called Press Start Irvine, which was kind of a DreamHack-esque 2-day or 36-hour event where people were like sleeping under the tables at night. And that also got about 2,000 people to come out. And that is when the school was like, you just booked out our Brent Event Center, our sports stadium, and you're one of the only clubs that actually made money from this event and had, tens of thousands of dollars of prize money and very, very high profile players coming out to Irvine. And that's when Mark discovered who I was. And, we kind of just connected and started building out this idea for an esports program.
Now, come on. It can't be just that Mark Deppy's like, oh, hey, let's do this. I mean, because Mark's background, I know, is soccer. I think was his main sport growing up. So how does Mark make the connection to you, or how do you like pitch this idea to Mark? Because it doesn't sound like Mark came in, from my conversations with him in interview, it didn't sound like Mark came into all of this, well versed in the world of esports. I'm sure that there was a lot of hand-holding teaching that you had to do along the way. How did you teach people about what this was? I mean, especially some people who are not endemic to it, who like, say, the president of the university, or, like I said, a Mark Deppy. How did you introduce this idea to them?
Right. For us, it was all about proving the community was there. And for us, it was a big deal that we came to the school. We didn't feel like we belonged anywhere necessarily. And through this one hobby or multiple games, right, just gaming in general, we were able to bring so many people out. And the fact that UCI was starting to get recognized, first, not by the university was actually like maybe the fifth person, I guess, or fifth group to recognize our success. It was Riot Games was calling us out. We were getting articles on their website about, look at what amazing things this club is doing. Blizzard Entertainment like partnered with us to get a bunch of people bussed out to the first Heroes of the Dorm ever. We were one of the first groups that they partnered up with, being in their backyard. Naturally, we had that benefit. So the fact that they were able to look us up and see that AAA game companies, local hardware and software companies, we were getting sponsorships from like MSI and Newegg and CyberPower PC, like these local companies that were all identifying us as a leader in the space. That at the point that I was able to have the Press Start event, which was a huge effort by a bunch of people, that was when I think Mark discovered us, because he was on the funding board for the Brent Event Center where we hosted the event.
Okay.
And there, having the spreadsheet of all the numbers, showing them this is how much money went into this is how many people worked on this event, I think really startled them, where it wasn't any longer just a small club on campus. It was like this big effort, like almost a professional esports organization doing events that were on a scale that they hadn't thought of before.
And when working with Mark, was it just creating a gaming club? Was it formalizing esports on campus? Was it formalizing it into, like I said, the club experience versus the varsity? How did that what was the start of that, I guess? What was the first iteration of this partnership, if you will?
Yeah, I think it all started with, Mark already had this idea that esports was so big, and he had done some of his own research in business school, that it really seemed like the next generation of sports, or at least competition on our campus.
Okay.
So he had this brilliant idea in his mind already, and he was like, I just need to know how to do it and how to do it correctly. And that's when he discovered my club and the stuff that we had been doing on campus, it seemed like the logical step to kind of take us on as advisors. So I was the president at the time. We also had a vice president who's very, very involved in wanting to make, shifts in high school and in college and just esports broadly. And so he was able to kind of be our first intern, and he worked really closely with Mark, saying like, these are the games that we play, these are the clubs that are very successful on our campus, we should probably look at this game and this game for our first year of scholarships or whatever. And we also did a lot of research on which individuals were at other schools that maybe we could be like, hey, we have a scholarship, we heard you're doing really well with your club, are you interested in transferring or coming to UCI to kind of help build this up? And I think that initial recruitment effort really set the stage for wanting to focus on competition as kind of the core of what we were offering, because that was easy to, I guess, sell to the university, saying that you understand traditional sports, so let's try to put it in a way, frame it in a way that you can understand it. But here's the bonus, is that we can also do stuff with research. We can also do stuff with our students. We can, build their careers. We can do all these awesome things. And even before we got approval, we knew that we wanted a facility on campus as well. So pretty much everything you hear about today with UCI Esports, the 5 pillars that we have, the UCI Esports Arena, that was stuff we were not willing to compromise on, because we understood that having that facility in the heart of campus would make such a big difference in how quickly gaming was accepted, but also how quickly gamers could find a home on campus to meet other people or get connected to all these opportunities.
I have seen that arena firsthand, and the thing that I found most impressive wasn't just the competitive space inside, but the things that were going on outside. You're absolutely right. That location, central to campus, feels like everybody's walking through there the entire day. And what was most astounding to me was seeing firsthand not just again the inside, but what was going on outside. Like you had I want to say it was a fighting game. I don't know if it was, I think it was Smash Brothers. There was some kind of
likely
tournament going. Yeah, but people, here's what you got to understand. It's Southern California, so it doesn't rain, doesn't snow. It's like beautiful all year round, 70 degrees. It's so rough. I went to school at Purdue in Indiana, and let me tell you, it's like, walking across campus when it's negative 20 is no fun. But here's the thing, is that I saw TVs being pulled out of, gosh knows, I don't know where all these TVs came from, but I don't know if kids were just bringing them down from their dorms, but plugging them into the tables that surround the courtyard, and just these things going on constantly, and on the inside as well too. It was so amazing. And again, you keep talking about the community, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people, I'm always amazed how the questions that are going right now in esports, especially at the scholastic level, is you have administrators who are asking questions like, what is esports? And then literally like 3 weeks later, they're like, we have an esports team. And it's like, you have no idea what you have right now. Like, Kathy, you came in and you didn't sell the games and the hardware. Yes, you did say these are the things we should be doing, but you sold it as, hey, we have 2,000 people who don't have a place on campus. This is community. And I got that sense right away. So kudos to you, and kudos to the all the people who did the work, Jesse Wang and Mark, and all those people who have done that work over the years at UCI. Congratulations to you on just growing that community.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the community's grown. How do you tend this garden? What is the things that once you have this community in place that you do to make sure that, even though you've been graduating from the university now about 4 years, still working there, let's say you decide to take this massive success that you have helped build and decide to go somewhere else. What do you hope happens, or what do you feel is in place to make sure that what's been in place is grown or grows and is well supported?
Right. There's so many different facets to that, because I feel like for us, the fact that you say community is core, I think a big part of it is because of my background as a student organizer. It's just getting the chance to give back and cater our programs to that audience that, we didn't have a champion, I guess, among administration or faculty when I was a student. So what I just always keep thinking back to the pain points that we had as students. It's like, what can we do to make sure that isn't at the frontmost, like at the forefront of everyone's minds when they get into the gaming space. So for us, it really was recognition, legitimacy, of course, resources like funding or, swag and all these different things. And it's really difficult to be able to offer that to clubs because there's so many clubs that want to do things. And we also have to sustain our own programs and, acquire sponsorships and all of that. So for people who don't know, we are self-supporting. We don't get, there's no budget set aside necessarily for esports planned into it. So our first couple years were really a challenge of how do we get sponsors and donors and partners to really make this possible. So if I leave, I really want to make sure that the clubs are not forgotten. I think that's something really important, especially during COVID, now that events are looking completely different. Students are engaging in completely different ways. I think it's very important for us to adapt to the tools they're used to and also offer support in ways that are tangible now that everything's online. So before we might be, here's the facility, here's the space. You can use the space for free once a quarter and bring in your own TVs. We have some TVs for you. Here's power, here's internet. All these things are no longer relevant because we can't just open up a facility and have people, swarm in there and have a great time. So now it's about how do we help promote your events on socials? How do we help your reach, teach you how to be social media savvy? How do we help you set up a Discord server, figure out how to stream from home and cast from home? We had an amazing Shoutcaster setup that's not being used anymore, and people have to figure out how to use their own setups to create awesome production. So I think that's really it right now is what are the ways we can teach students and make sure they can still be successful even if our support dwindles or changes over time.
I got a little bit of chills. And here's why. It's because you're such an amazing person. Gosh, you were just so amazing. Okay, so realize this, because the question that was immediately going into my head was you talked about self-supporting, right? And you talked about how you have these sponsors but then COVID changes the rules. Mm-hmm. And where do people find value in what it is your community can offer? Again, if UCI Esports wins a national championship, awesome, great. Y'all have a big old party. If UCI Esports goes 0-60, pulls like a Shanghai Dragons in Overwatch of thing, the community doesn't change. The community is still there. The support's there. And if I'm a sponsor, what you just described to me, the value add of my partnership to you, my, wanting to be a part of what you do, I would want to be a part of what you do, even not in a physical space, because again, working with kids and developing positive interactions and creating ways for them to engage themselves across the world or keep together. I mean, that is powerful to be able to do. And I will say this, you put that on full display, because I'll tell you something, Kathy, until that ESC conference this year, which I'm gonna just give you all kinds of praise here. It's just gonna happen throughout this whole thing. That ESC conference, if somebody wanted to replicate what you did, I feel like they would have a heck of a hard time doing it, because people who did not get to participate in that, let me tell you something. Not only did I fall in love with that as an online conference and going, oh my gosh, if there's never another online conference, or a million of them, this is going to be the best one ever. I felt I was completely out of love with Discord. I hated Discord. It was this ugly, stupid, noisy system. Your conference showed me how Discord can be nice and can be tamed and be used in really awesome and productive ways. Let's talk about that a little bit here. Let's talk about that conference and how you shifted this amazing in-person conference, which I went to in 2019, and started the work to get it to 2020. How did you start to do that process?
Yeah, that was difficult. It actually took us a really long time to finally admit defeat and say we can no longer, have this live conference. For a couple months, we were like, maybe we can do it live with, social distancing and just have a hybrid component for people that can't travel. And it wasn't until several months before the conference that we decided, okay, this is crazy. We're still holding out on all these rentals and reservations, and it's just holding us back. And we deciding then and there that we had to go virtual before the mandate was even out from government or anything else was just the right move for us. Mm-hmm. So we basically had like half the time we usually have to plan a conference to figure out how are we going to transfer this entire experience to an online experience where you still feel like you're at a conference. Like that was one thing we really cared about is everyone's in so many Zoom calls now, right? You don't want to just feel like you're sitting in a Zoom call, all right, sign off, go into another Zoom call. It's just meeting after meeting after meeting. So we
Yep, I
needed
did it
some.
today.
I know all of us have. So we really wanted to make sure there was some like community aspect to it. There was like a hub where we could all feel like here's the resting spot where we could gather, just like the lobbies or after a lecture, hanging out in the hallways and talking to speakers and other attendees. We really wanted to keep that networking aspect of it and have the downtime just as much as the uptime of all the amazing presenters that we had this year. So for us, I thought of Discord immediately just because that's where students are, right? That's as a gamer, that's where I am. Like my guild operates entirely out of Discord. It's very familiar to me. So for that, it was just a matter of how do we, switch up the gears a little bit and try to come up with a conference setup. Do we need different rooms for breakouts? Do we need rooms for games? Just trying to imagine the physical space of a conference, but sectioning it off into text and voice channels, and then seeing how we can also use Twitch and Zoom to take care of some of the things that Discord is a bit weaker at. And that's really all it was too. It was trying to reimagine this experience, thinking of what bots we could employ to make our lives easier, like checking in, the help desk, ticketing systems, like all these things that I didn't even know existed until I was Googling, like right before the conference, like we need tools to make my life easier. And there's so many great bots out there. There's so much great work people have put into making Discord so flexible that I really I made use of the tools that already existed.
And to the educators who are listening who don't know what Discord is, can you just describe, because to try to describe Discord, I've tried to do it many times, even though, like I said, I only am a convert, if you will, recently. How do you describe Discord to somebody who has maybe never experienced it before?
So my easiest way of saying it is it's like Slack for gamers. So people that use Slack in a professional environment. But for those that don't, it's essentially a server is just like one community. And in that community, you can set up text or voice channels. So you can customize that however you want. You can split it up by different groups and permissions for the different members that come in. And it's just very versatile. Primarily, it was used by gaming communities to form kind of a hub for all the people they would play with. So you can imagine having a personal Discord server in which you just have one text chat for sharing pet photos, one text chat for talking about homework, and then you also have voice channels that people can hop into to like watch videos together or just discuss what was happening. And you can create as many as you want, so it's really, really flexible in figuring out what exactly you need for your community.
And your Discord that you set up inspired me in a few ways, and I know that there were other people who experienced the conference as well too, who also were a bit inspired. For example, I never thought in a million years, and again, don't hold this against me, but I never thought in a million years to set up a role for gender pronouns. Something that a lot of people. I'm 45. Okay, we don't. My generation didn't deal in gender pronouns, right? But as an educator now working with kids who are, teenagers, that is something that is very important to them. And of course I have to be the administrator, and I'm like, okay, should I do this? Should I not? What's the pitfalls? Again, you just have to think through all these things. And your conference showed me first how it could work. And what it did was it precipitated a conversation with some of my own scholar gamers, which then became a conversation around community, which came conversation around with all of us, that yes, we did do this, that it is very successful, that like I said, it showed students that they have their voice and how important it is for them to have these identifying things. And nobody's using it as a weapon. I mean, it's not weaponized against anybody. It's just how you see each other. And if anybody's going to use it as a weapon, guess what? Our community is our community. And we have ways to deal with those and educate. Because again, we're not just going to kick somebody out unless they're being incredibly, totally toxic. But yeah, again, inspiring. You inspired a number of educators to go back and rethink just how they connect their community together. And it's been so important because, again, Discord is the glue right now for a lot of our kids that are holding them together because they are not able to. Our school has been, we haven't been in session physically since March. I mean, think about that. We have kids, Angelique Giannis will tell you that she's got students who are going to be juniors who have barely been in high school physically by the time they get back, they suspect.
Wow.
I mean, that's nuts when you think about that. Think about that. You show up and you haven't been in school since your 8th grade year for an entire year.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
Yeah. So, again, your work has been very and again, it was a team. I know I'm giving you all the credit right now, but your team that you put together was also incredibly supportive. Can you talk about them for just a little bit and just how much work? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, I can just put a Discord server together and it's great. Ours, I know we have myself and 12 teachers who are a part of it, who are kind of like, you could say, moderators. We do have some student moderators as well, too. The captains have mod roles. With your experience with this conference, and what would be some advice that you would give people when it comes to creating a Discord server if they were going to do so?
Yeah, that's it. Really, yeah, it's hard because also depending on what you're making the server for and your audience and who's going to be in there, you're going to want to make it a little bit different. But I do want to go back a little bit to the roles thing that you brought up, where I want anyone that's on the fence about it, the way I see it is, don't make things mandatory. If it's there and people want to use it, they will use it and they will appreciate that they can use it. Forcing people to jump through hoops or do things that they don't want to do is never, conductive for good conversation or discussion. So that's what we do is,
and ours was optional as well. I just want to say, put it on record. Ours was optional as well too. So it was not required that you put your pronoun in. The only thing we did require is that you agree to terms of service. That was the only requirement that we had. Okay. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah, same actually. So we made sure we actually design, this is also a tip for anyone designing Discord servers, is we have a welcome channel that everyone sees the moment they join the server. You can actually set based on the invite link that you send out, you can set which server that people see the moment they join. So make sure it's actually a text channel and it's actually your welcome server channel, sorry. And in that welcome channel, we made sure that every post was information that everyone had to read. So, you start off with a welcome, then immediately hit them with a code of conduct, right? You want your community guidelines first, like the first thing people see so they understand expectations. Sounds like James also did this, but we had a check mark for a check-in system that indicated if you read these rules, you would click on that reaction and it would flag you with a role that then granted you access to the rest of the server. So there's a bit of, Discord ninjaing going on there with the different bots and the different permissions that you have to set. But honestly, it's pretty easy to learn if you read through all the documentation or reach out to people who have done it before. But that way you can guarantee that everyone's actually read the instructions. And then beyond that, just anything else that can help make Discord easier to use. So usually there's like a channel directory. You can list what each channel is used for. You can say, if you need help, this is how you find help. And also pointing out the different roles in the server, saying things like, if you get lost, message any of the people listed as an administrator or staff, and just introducing people to what you have to do to make sure that they can have a good experience, even if they're completely new to Discord. And I do want to share a cool anecdote. Like, there were so many people that messaged me afterwards saying, this is my first time using Discord. I was really skeptical, but now I have like this other tool that I want to explore. And I think it's amazing that people are open-minded to new technology, and it's really hard, I know, to adapt to new tools. So I was so happy that I was able to help with that. But on the point of my team, yes, there was a whole planning committee behind the conference. Of course, this could not be a solo effort at all. Every year, we partner up with our School of Informatics. So we have graduate students that dedicate their time on this project every single year. Jason was one of our co-chairs with Mark. We had Minnie working on
I
programming
love
and
Minnie.
peer reviewing. Yeah, just shout outs to Minnie.
Minnie
so
is all about me
organized.
finishing my dissertation. She's like, when are you going to be done? I'm like, I'm working on it, Minnie.
Yeah, and she was the one that was like sorting through all the proposals, like making sure that people followed the guidelines, the formats, it was going to be a good talk. And then Reginald, of course, helping out with speaker experience, communicating with people. And we could not have done it without their help because we are not like researchers. We do not understand proposals. And then Maria as well from their team, just helping out wherever we needed it, from going through proposals as well, but also being on the ground in the Discord server, helping us out with planning community events, fun things like that. And then we had a whole bunch of people from the UCI Esports department, of course. Hillary worked with Maria on all the fun, like in between conference activities, which I recommend. I cannot recommend enough. You cannot just have back to back to back programming. You need to have fun videos between. You have to have little gaming activities or little discussion topics. So all the amazing graphics and videos that we put out, from like Mark's happy hour video, like all of that was put together.
That thing was hysterical. Great
It was
job
all
on
done
that.
by our interns and led by Hillary. So lots of
And
student work went into this.
And Hillary is another one of my favorite people who, if anybody talks bad about Hillary, I will fight you. So I will just say that. Now, again, you've been with UCI Esports since, I guess, let's say 2000. Well, you started in the school. We'll just say 2011. Okay, you've helped grow this up. That for a lot of people is more than a great start to a career. I mean, we're talking 9 years now. Where do you go? Now, I'm not saying you're pitching out for a job or you're going looking anywhere or that you're upset with what's going on at UCI, but let me ask you this. What is next? Well, let's just say, what's next for UCI Esports, or where do you hope things go in the coming future as far as growing this community again and making sure that it is solid into the future?
Yeah,
other than like the things you described,
right.
Not to say like the things you didn't describe, like helping people in the time of COVID, but let's say COVID is now over. Mm-hmm. Where do you see, because again, it looked to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, the arena looks like it's outgrown what it can hold, because oh my God, you have so much in that space. It is actually, I think, a small space considering what you have going on in there. What would be, I guess, okay, let's try this. What would be something that if you redesigned the arena that you feel like, oh my gosh, we should have really given more space to this?
I would say that the way it is now is actually pretty good, because our problem is we try to fit everything in the arena. That was the problem. We try to fit administrative work in there, research in there, the community, of course, the open spaces for our students, as well as general public to come in and play games. But then our teams were also there and practicing and competing. We were shoutcasting in a corner. We we were making do with what we had. We had one facility and tried to touch on all these different things that we really, really cared about. But it was cramped in terms of, as you say, like the amount of things we are trying to do in there. So the arena itself is a great facility. And I think what it really succeeds and excels at is the community aspect and the broadcasting entertainment aspect. So our goal, COVID, like if it did not happen, we were already kind of planning how to transform that space to focus entirely on those two things and then move everything else into a separate facility. So we were actually hoping to unveil this new facility at the UCI Esports conference, because it was going to be hosted at the new facility. But of course, that was not able to happen. But hopefully this isn't a secret and I'm allowed to talk about it, but we actually do have another office space that is supposed to be dedicated to actual office spaces for all the administrators, soundproofed separate practice rooms for all of the teams, as well as a third room for visiting researchers, visiting professional teams, anyone that kind of wants to have that awesome experience that they could not have necessarily in the arena since everything was in one spot. We also had like a classroom plan for VOD review, as well as a bunch of open working spaces for our interns and also the researchers from our partner schools on campus. So it was really going to be separated out and, doted on a little more, other than almost like an afterthought of shoving everything into one room. So that would be what we would be growing, I think, if we were to go back on campus, figure out where we're putting everything, grow it up, make sure it's sustainable, and then go back to focusing on all the things we care about. Nurturing the competitive teams, figuring out what other research we can help with, and of course, still developing all the clubs and all the other ways that we can engage students that we have kind of not been able to do that well in the past couple months.
Kathy, I go between my favorite UCI people, and you're getting right up there near the top, if not the top person. I love that idea. I love that, again, the growth, the community. And again, we've barely talked about the games. I mean, yeah, there's League of Legends and Overwatch that UCI Esports is known for. But again, it all comes back to community. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to realize, is just how important it is. That it is core for all of this to be successful. That it doesn't matter if you have an esports team, what is cutting edge is what you do with it. And again, you've taken this and said, here's a place where we can have community. Here's a place where we can really make UCI a place that allows. I'll tell you this. My 17-year-old daughter, God forbid she wants to go to Southern California for school, because we have great in-state schools here in Wisconsin. But if she found out about UCI Walk the Campus, I know she would be very interested in attending there. We actually have one of our Racine kids is actually on the basketball team over at Karan Butler's son is playing UCI basketball. So there is a Racine connection there back to UCI. But your work is amazing. I keep, and I will tell you this too. If people want a consultant for how to run an online conference, Kathy Chiang is your person for that. So Kathy Chiang, thank you for so much for giving of your time and being a guest on the Academy of Esports podcast today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to be here. And if I can give some shout outs back, I've seen your name.
Please do.
I mean, for you are just such a voice in the space, both for Scholastic Esports and also, despite not being at a college, you have talked about so many things that we all look up to you as well. So I really want to just really thank you for being letting me be here, and I really appreciate it. And yeah, just major props to everyone that's really building up this space right now. I know a lot of people see Scholastic Esports and Collegiate Esports as kind of two different things, but for me, it really is connected because our goals are the same. And I think, these conversations with you and just with your community and with our community is just, that's just a step in the right direction. So just thank you again so much for the opportunity.
Well, if my head's not getting red, that's a good thing, because I'm trying to hold it all in. So Kathy Chiang, thanks again for being a guest, and good luck to you. And I hope, again, we can see this in 2021, or we can do a live Academy of Esports podcast from the new studios out at UCI.
Yes, that would be awesome.
That will do it for this week on the Academy of Esports. I've been your host, James O'Hagan. Esports are organized competitive video games allowing schools to redefine their athletic culture, diversify opportunities for student participation, promote good physical and mental health, increase collegiate scholarship pathways, and play games. We can never forget the importance of play. The mission of the Academy of Esports is to support these ideals. The vision of the Academy of Esports is for all students to experience the fun and joy of playing competitive video games. You may follow me on Twitter at Jim O'Hagan. That's at JIMOHAGAN, and through the Academy of Esports account at TAO Esports. It's a great way to get the latest blog posts, podcast episodes, and news coming out of esports and education. And remember, you can continue your engagement by going to www.taoesports.com. You can also connect through Facebook at www.facebook.com/TAOesports. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to our time again next week.